Off the Ball are here today in Dangan Sportsground of University of Galway. It is the heart of Galway City, but we're actually catching up with a Mayo man today, Jason Doherty, with thanks to AIB, proud sponsors of the Senior Football Championship. Jason is in his 13th year as an intercounty footballer now at Mayo. We're going to talk about what the last couple of years have been like, how he's bounced back from injury, and why this year might be different for Mayo. Jason Doherty, thanks for popping out to join us.
No problem, thanks Tommy.
We're here in Dangan Sportsground in University of Galway. You'd be familiar with this place?
I went to college here a good few years ago now, at this stage, but I'm back now. I suppose I'm living in town. Came west from a few years in Dublin, so yeah, it's nice to be back this side of the country.
So a Mayo man in Galway, is that a dangerous thing in a year like this year in 2023?
Yeah, it's getting a bit more dangerous, I suppose.
It's sustainable energy that you're working in, isn't it?
Yeah.
You didn't go down the teaching route or the banking route?
No, I stayed away from it. Yeah, I stuck with I always loved those maths and construction and type of thing. Led me to engineering, and then I did the Masters in Energy Management in DIT, or Technical University of Dublin now I think it's called.
And like, as an intercounty footballer with Mayo, work like that, is it a tough balance to kind of get that right?
Yeah.
Like you're 13 years now as an intercounty footballer.
Yeah.
It's a long stint, Jason. I'm not going to give away your age here, but there's not many lads left of your vintage.
Yeah, it is. I suppose I'd be probably pretty, as a person, I'd probably pride myself on organisation, so it kind of has helped with getting the balance between the travel up and down. But work, in fairness, have been, and my managers that I've had at work as well have been very, very accommodating.
Why you keep coming back, why you keep going for it? Because there must be a massive driving force, the connections and the people that you play with.
Yeah. Definitely. Like, I think this, I don't know, I suppose a lot of probably athletes or competitors that you read about kind of say it, but it's kind of a strange buzz from, I don't know, I suppose trying to overcome a kind of a tough challenge, if you like, and trying to figure out and work with kind of, a group of other 30, 35 lads that are kind of a similar mindset to you. So like I still get that buzz, or I suppose that hunger to I suppose win something big. I still get a buzz at the pride, I suppose, of representing your family and friends, and even the responsibility that kind of comes with doing that. It's like as much stress as it probably causes, and in build up to games, on the flip side then there's so much reward from that feeling, particularly I think just in the dressing room after a big win, that you've spent a week doing video analysis and chatting to lads, and I just really enjoyed that, still really enjoy that side of it.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing, like a group of people moving in the same direction.
I suppose every year, particularly now this year, it is, I know it's the old cliche, but it's kind of that next game kind of mentality, and that like there's new faces, new voices. There's no 2 years where the panel is the same. So it's, in terms of tapping into something, you're tapping into that year, if you like, because there's just, even yourself, and even from an individual perspective, like I suppose you're trying to figure out where your body is at, where your mind is at. We tap into a point, but I think very much you're still kind of you're tapping into whatever the management in that particular year are trying to do.
So a week after winning the league final, you're brought back down to earth. Roscommon knock you out of Connacht. How long does it take then for you to kind of wake up and realise, okay, this isn't the end of the world. We've 6 weeks now to get ourselves ready. There's going to be a group stage. You don't get the Kerry draw for about 3 or 4 weeks. When did it click over that 6 weeks?
I think like any result like that, you probably you lick your wounds for a couple of days, but it's soon, it doesn't take long, I think, as an individual and the group then to kind of just reframe the whole thing. Because you have to, there's no point dwelling on it really. We had a little bit of time off after the Roscommon game.
Which they gave you a break.
Yeah.
What's he saying there? He's saying lads go away, take a break?
Yeah, literally just switch off, and I suppose and come back kind of re-energised, which I think it actually worked pretty well. I think, in fairness, some lads got some time away with their partners or just with friends. Everyone was kind of back on board, kind of had forgot about the Roscommon game to a point, and then it was like, right, we have 4 or 5 weeks or whatever it was to kind of prep for our next game, and kind of flip it, reframe it to, well, that kind of, in a strange way, gives us an advantage going into the next game. So yeah.
It's a powerful thing when you believe something, regardless of whether it's true or not, but if a group believes in whatever the management team are telling them, and you're all moving in the same direction. We saw it against Kerry. Like, you were just going 100 miles an hour that day. Like, when did you know you were ready to go, you were ready to rock?
I suppose every day you expect to kind of, like, we're going out to win every game. The reality is you don't really know like, from my own perspective, you kind of look after your own job and nail that, but to a point you don't know how the 14 other lads on the pitch, or the other 10 lads, 11 lads on the bench, when they come on, how they're going to play. So for me, and it has kind of been the mindset this year, is that everyone just look after your own job, and ideally when everyone does that, it produces a pretty good performance, because when we're on, we're pretty good. So yeah, I think just against Kerry, that went to plan.
I was looking back at the debut. It's in Tuam Stadium. Jason Doherty scores 2-1, 2 goals, hot shot corner forward, breaking through. That's the type of footballer you were back then?
That's probably what had got me in, was scoring relatively heavy for the club in intermediate. That National League was a whirlwind, like, in terms of just, I think, like, initially I pretty much came on against, I think, Kerry the week before, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Neil Douglas was starting. We were the same age, and he got injured and I got in, and all of a sudden you're thrown an opportunity to start the week after, and yeah, that went well, and then got the next game and got.
You racked up a couple of goals in that league campaign.
Yeah, I think it was 7. Yeah, 7 and 7 or something, or 6 or something. So I suppose 2014 probably, then I kind of reverted more to the half forward line. 16 kind of was full forward line, but kind of playing in between the two lines.
Your game has changed quite a bit. You've kind of adapted to, and we've kind of seen that with different footballers over the years. We've seen it with the likes of maybe Paul Flynn or James McCarthy when they first broke in. Maybe their physical frame changed a lot as the kind of game changed itself. You see it now with a young player like Ben O'Carroll, maybe in Roscommon, who, similar possibly to yourself, would have broken through as a shooting forward, and now he's playing more as a target man role, facilitating other players. When did that click with you, that you maybe needed to adapt your game to thrive, I suppose, in intercounty football?
2014 probably, when I look back, was probably the first year I kind of really invested, and since then have invested in kind of the, I don't know if you want to call it the mental preparation side of it. Like, so I was probably much from 11 to 12 and 13 was probably just younger, greener. Didn't think about it as much, which was great to a point. Then I started maybe the kind of just that mental prep, and you start thinking about, well, what went well in this training or that game, and then you slowly start to realise, like, we're not stupid, so you can kind of see what managers like, and generally, I think across any sport, just a solid base of working hard gets you a long way. So I probably always prided myself on just nailing the basics, if you like, whether it was just that kind of first touch, the tackle, the obviously the scoring, but I think I probably got a decent amount of joy from just being probably solid and reliable in different areas, and just working hard.
Andy Moran described you in his book as one of the most important teammates in the second part of his career. Now, I don't know whether Andy is thanking you for that Footballer of the Year award in 2017, but I think he puts a lot of the work that yourself and Kevin McLaughlin and Cian O'Connor may have done to allow him to be the full forward inside. And Paddy Andrews talks about it that was his kind of role for Dublin as well, that he used to win that first ball, be that first receiver. Like, is there not an element of ego that comes into it, where you're like, I want to be the man in number 14, collecting the ball and put it over the bar, scoring the goals like you did in those early days? How do you kind of check that?
Of course, you want to be top scorer in the championship, you want to be collecting All-Stars every year, you kind of want that stuff, but I kind of flipped from that, because I found myself earlier in my career probably comparing myself to, sometimes in the middle of games, to my opposite number.
Really?
On the other team, yeah, which was just crazy.
You'd be looking down the far side?
You could be looking down and kind of thinking, geez, someone, whether it was Kilkenny or someone or in the Galway half-forward line, geez, they have more possessions than me, and it was just, and then you're kind of looking at the sideline wondering, what are they thinking? Are they going to? So, just crazy stuff looking back, where I kind of moved away completely from that, where it's just that kind of old cliche stuff again of just trying to go play by play type of thing. Like Andy was in 17, obviously was lighting it up. On the flip side, then I was a strong kind of tackler, and just aerobically was able to do that for Andy, because I wanted him close to goal, because he was causing havoc.
But you want to win, like?
Yeah, exactly. You want to win, so you realise what kind of puts us in the best position to win. Like me complaining and kind of saying, listen, I want to be in there instead of him, wasn't going to probably get us a long way.
It sounds simple, like, but there's so many teams around the country probably listening in, and that can sometimes be the issue, that possibly not everyone is kind of pulling in the same direction. So, like, having players with your mindset was obviously a massive part of that journey for Mayo. We might just hang on what you're saying for a second, because I was looking back on a lot of the big games that you played, and like All-Ireland finals, you really delivered as the years went on. The All-Ireland semi-finals, you really stood up. Those big games, you were a big game player. But in 2012, and you're talking about being a bit younger, you start that All-Ireland final against Donegal, you're taken off after 48 minutes. 2013, you don't start that final against Dublin. You come on late on in that game. After that then, you start the 14 semi-final and replay. You start the 16 final and replay. You start the 17 final. I think you play nearly every minute in those games. What was that when you talk about that mental preparation? Did James Horan tap you on the shoulder and say, Jason, you got to change this, or was it just something that you did yourself? Did you work with somebody on it?
Yeah, I suppose 2000, again, it probably ties in with the 12 and 13. Particularly probably 12 probably was overthinking it.
Okay.
And again in 13, I got kind of injured, and I think we had a club game in the April. We used to have the month of April off, and kind of did ankle ligaments, which was again kind of my only injury for a long period of time, and then just didn't work my way back into the team until I think that came on for the last minute or two of the whatever it was of the 2013 final. And then 14, I was working with, it was actually Kieran Shannon at the time, and just a simple kind of I suppose it was a kind of a tool I still use just where I review every single pitch session. I've probably reviewed every pitch session I've done since 2014.
Take the notes.
Yeah, just a simple kind of like, I suppose, positives, lessons, and kind of actions for the next one. So it just, for me anyway, I'm very much probably a visual person. So even if I have a bad game or anything, I'm big on just, rather than overthinking it, write it down and review it as quick as possible so it doesn't kind of linger and affect work or affect relationships. So yeah, that was probably the big turning point in 2014. I started doing that, which I think led on to maybe just being able to, I suppose, forget wins and losses probably a bit quicker and just move on to the next one. I suppose I've had a bit of time off the pitch over the last couple of years with injuries, so that really, I suppose, one of my big goals for this year was to contribute as much as I can, as much as possible on the pitch, whatever that role might be, because that's changing this year as well in terms of being forward and a back at times. So it's great.
It's really interesting. Like, you've gone from that corner forward to, at times in the league this year, playing that. How do we describe this new? Is it the quarterback centre back role? Is that what we're talking about it? Like, that's Conor Loftus is kind of playing it for you this year. We're seeing a lot of teams kind of playing forwards in the half back line at the minute.
Nowadays as well, particularly if there's packed defences, but having a kind of the ball player at 6 that can move the ball and transition the ball quickly, obviously is really can really help. It'll knock defences, and just get ahead of the opposition dropping back. But in many ways it's kind of been great for me because, I was kind of, will I, won't I come back this year type of thing. And then once I met Kevin, in fairness, it didn't take much to convince me when someone kind of outlines that, they value you, they want you, they see you contributing. So
was it a big question in your mind, because like, you lost 2.5 years to injury, so you're in your mid-30s, you have a job with a lot of responsibility, you're newly married. Was it a big call?
Yeah, of course it was, but then in the end then it probably turned out not to be, because it didn't take much to, I spent a good few months thinking about it, thinking I was going one direction, and kind of
one conversation
over coffee with Kevin probably changed it pretty quickly. And even conversations with, it's funny, I was on a couple of stags and you're having conversations with ex-players and
don't go yet, that's what they're saying.
Yeah, they're like, max it out as long as you possibly can. And there is that element of, last year was, some parts of it were frustrating with just little niggles as well, so you're kind of like, again, taking on that challenge of let's see what I can do new next year under new faces, new management, new voices, and almost that challenge of proving myself to another management team as well was something that kind of appealed to me.
When you first broke in under James Horan, when you first properly broke in, James Horan was a very young manager at the time. You had a new generation of players as well, like a group kind of coming together, all around similar ages. How different is it now when you're got a young lad like Sam Callanan starting for you? Colin Reap has kind of broken through this year. There's different personalities coming onto the team. Has your role in the dressing room changed over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think I've probably taken on more of a leadership role probably over the last 5 or 6 years. When I was out, I was kind of doing it in different ways, from not being able to be on the pitch, whether it was just leading out different analysis bits, or I suppose now then it's trying to grow and develop those younger lads to kind of, looking back from what maybe the learnings I had, maybe 10 years ago, just trying to pass on any bit of knowledge you have.
Jason, apart from that ankle issue you had in 2013, you were fairly blemish-free on the injury record up until that Super 8s game in 2019 against Donegal. Were you going for a breaking ball? You were flying that year.
Yeah, the Donegal game was a kick out, I think, actually, that kind of came and just spun just planted the foot and spun a kind of a way I probably wouldn't usually do to get away from whoever was coming, I think, behind me, and just it just gave way.
The ACL.
Yeah. That kind of just
And
clean tear.
like, you know, there's so many footballers that have suffered from like such a horrible injury. Players are coming back now. Like back in the day, maybe if you did your cruciate, you weren't coming back. Players are coming back now quicker than ever, really. It's a difficult time trying to rehab an injury. How did you approach it?
Yeah, I probably approached it a bit like, as you said, a bit like an engineer. I suppose I broke it down into different kind of milestones, and yeah, the Excel sheet came out in terms of like planning. Initially, I remember was what's the return date? When can I get back playing? It's a bit like anything. If you start thinking about the final or the future, kind of you lose track. So yeah, just broke it down into different milestones, and I kind of just nailing each milestone and each gym session. And then I kind of, once the boots came on after maybe 4 months into it, it flew then, pretty much. So yeah.
What do you like stepping onto the grass in a Mayo jersey again that next time? Is there a bit of trepidation? Are you just excited to be back? Did it take you a long time to settle into it in 2022?
There's obviously a pile of, initially there's kind of nerves, you're not sure, but I suppose I had a bank of training under me by the time I played the Donegal game in the league last year. So obviously confidence had been built up. I wasn't really thinking about the knee at that point. It's just that kind of rustiness and getting back into it.
So for those 2.5 years, like earlier on you'd spoken about the importance of the group. A lot of that you're doing it on your own, you're rehabbing it, you're probably in your own head a little bit.
Yeah.
But are you still contributing to the group? Like you're saying, are you contributing a lot now? Did your role kind of change in the team? Are you at training, giving a bit, or how did you stay a part of the team? Like?
Yeah, I suppose in fairness, probably twofold. Like James Horn was very good in terms of just keeping me involved in different group settings, and obviously making sure, inviting me to be there as much as possible, but not putting any pressure on. But even asking for advice on different things, and I suppose then my own side, then a bit like that kind of want to contribute. Then I suppose invest in myself and the stuff I could do, which might be whether it was coming up with different kickouts or leading different analysis groups, or watching sessions, giving feedback, different bits like that. I just want, again, it was all that for that kind of craving, that need to feel like if we succeed or if we win this out, that I have contributed. So yeah, definitely probably was mainly stuff off the pitch, but equally being around sessions and kind of giving different steers to different guys and different things.
Yeah. That decision to come back again this year, you'd put in a stint like 2011 to 2022. You were well within your rights to say, I've given my lot for Mayo and I'm going to move on and do something different in my life now. What is it that brought you back?
Part of it was, I suppose, I didn't want it to, my maybe career, if you like, to finish as a sob story, or what if, or it's a shame he didn't play this, that and the other. So part of it was kind of that, again, goes back to maybe taking on that challenge of getting back and kind of, seeing where I'm at in terms of like what would it be like if I was on the pitch. A lot of my reasons were what if this, and what if I get another injury, or blah blah. But then on the flip side is when I thought about what if I didn't, it kind of reframed it for me. So I think it was definitely trying to maybe not necessarily finish. I don't even know. I haven't even I've flipped from maybe even thinking about it to not thinking about it at all. This year is just to, again, session by session kind of approach and see how the body feels. And I know if I stay on the pitch that I'll be in a pretty good place and I can still contribute pretty heavily to this team. So yeah, some of it was kind of that challenge of changing the narrative maybe of the last 2 years to a sob story, to more like, geez, look what he can still do on the pitch, regardless of age or whatever it might be. Yeah, and then it probably goes back to, again, the whole bit of like, there's a really good group there, really good players, still really good friends, that it's hard to just walk away from that. Like, you don't get that buzz, I think, in a lot of other areas of life in terms of work. It's just not the same kind of, how would you, I suppose, environment.
Connection.
Yeah, that kind of connection, that many people on a really defined kind of pathway or objective. So
another element of it is probably there's a feeling of it being an unfinished journey. Is that a fair thing to say? Like, there's been 7 All-Ireland finals, including replays, that you've been very close in different ways, and just possibly haven't won Sam. Like, is that a driving force, or how do you look at it?
I think the prize is a driving force, but not the being close or not being close. I don't think becomes a...
That doesn't matter, does it not?
Not really, no, because it's a completely different. It's a different team. It's a different group each year, and there's going to be slightly different goals, objectives, and different stuff set. So I don't think there's any value in it. Trying to, if you think too much or overthinking how close we were, like it means there's significant potential there and we're nearly there. But like this year's panel is completely different to 2017.
I'm going to wish you the best of luck. It feels like it's one of the most open All-Irelands that we've ever gone into. Like there's so many teams that are contenders at the moment. So Mayo are certainly up there. So best of luck, Jason. Thanks a million for coming out to chat to us today.
Cheers, Tommy.
Great to have you.
Yeah, good man.
Thank you.